Good morning, friends. I hope that you're having a great morning. Today is Thursday morning, the 27th, and I'm not at school today. My son is graduating from high school this morning at the fairgrounds, right about now at 8 o'clock. So I wanted to share a story with you before tomorrow because tomorrow's our last day of school. And then yesterday you said you wanted to hear the story of the Invisible Boy. So I wanted to read that one with you. All right, share my screen. And then you can see the story, The Invisible Boy. This is by Trudy Ludwig, and it's illustrated by Patrice Barton. And I think it's really interesting because it seems to me like the boy might not really be invisible. You'll have to see what you think and let me know. So this is The Invisible Boy. He is drawn with chalk. The Invisible Boy. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Miss Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. He is. There's Brian. I can see him. Nathan has problems with Miss Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. So he's not really invisible, but he doesn't draw a lot of attention. He's just kind of quiet and to himself. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. Well, that seems very sad. He wants to be picked to play kickball with his friends. I hope he gets picked. Uh-oh. Let's see what happened. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. So Brian just walks away. Poor Brian. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. How do you think that made him feel? I think if I wasn't invited to a party and everybody else was, I would feel a little left out. Probably pretty sad. At choosing time, while the other kids played board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings. Ha ha ha. Thank you for toasting my marshmallow. That's what this guy's saying here. Space aliens locked in intergalactic battles. I got you now. Greedy pirates digging for treasure. Crackers? Arg. And the bird says, yay! And superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Hi, friend. Have a cookie. Oh, that's a great superpower, to make friends wherever you go. That would be awesome. I would like that. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. I wonder what that means, to be cool enough to be their friend. I wonder what kind of criteria or what kind of things they're looking for in a good friend. What would you look for in a good friend? At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. Bul what? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat bulgogi. And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at, like Justin, or feeling invisible, like him. Which would you rather? I know, I wouldn't rather be either one, laughed at or feel invisible. Neither one seems very good. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian. And then there's a picture of Brian saying yum and eating bulgogi with his chopsticks. That was very kind of him. To write him a little note, make him feel welcome. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. I think Brian's starting to feel something different. Look at his face here. He doesn't look quite so sad anymore. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads toward Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Why do you think he wants to find a hole to swallow him up? Maybe so he could hide and not be so sad or embarrassed. And then Justin says, Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us. Okay, I guess. Now look what happened to the picture. Here he's been all gray, and now he's starting to get some color. What do you think the illustrator is trying to tell us when he's starting to get some color as soon as Justin touched his shoulder? Let's find out. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. There's their picture. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. And there they are, working on the picture, drawing and cutting. And here's the story in the background that they drew. And it says, the crooked story we made up on the spot. He's got a dinosaur hat, shorts. Looks like they had a really good time working together. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout, "Hey, Brian, over here." Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Oh my goodness. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. Cookie? Thanks. Look at his cool lunch bag, too. So now he's not really invisible after all. That was a really good story. I love that. All right, so I hope that you don't ever feel invisible like Brian did in his story. But if you do, you just have to think about what Justin did, and he just made a friend. He picked someone out to make new friends with. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I will see you tomorrow morning for our last read aloud of the school year, because tomorrow's the last day of school, and I have a special book. And the hint I gave yesterday was that it has to do a little bit with the first book I ever read to you. Okay? All right. I will see you in the morning. Have a great day.